What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Virtue Bowling Supply YouTube channel. Today we have another comparisons ball review featuring Specto of the new Radical Conspiracy. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for an exciting new thing coming to the Virtue Bowling Supply YouTube channel. This Thursday, the 21st at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to have the head honcho from Radical, Phil Cardinelli, here, as well as our two testers. And we're going to take Q&A and discuss the new Radical Conspiracy and Outer Limits Pearl. We'll take your questions and answers. We're going to give away some prizes right here on the Virtue Bowling Supply YouTube channel. We'll hope you will join us, and we'll see you then. Now let's get back to the ball review. This is a proven core that had a lot of success when it was originally released. Now it's wrapped in Brunswick's new HK22 cover, which has been used on a lot of very successful bowling balls. A lot of people like it, and so we're excited to see how this new cover matches up on this proven core. Let's get into meeting our testers and see what bowling balls they're going to be comparing to. Up first is going to be Michael Fitzgerald, PBA member, has a lot of regional success. Cash is still looking for his first regional title, but has a very good acquired eye for being able to see the difference of bowling balls, especially on sport patterns. He's going to be comparing to the Brunswick Mindset and Widow 3.0. Let's see what he thinks.
Initial thoughts on the Conspiracy, the brand new one. It is certainly a strong ball. It wants to read even in the oil. It's not super sharp off the break point, but it definitely picks up and rolls forward. So that's just because of how strong the core and cover really are together. I'm guessing we're bowling on some kind of typical shot here. In this house, it's high friction, so may not be the most conducive ball for this place, but I could definitely see how it's rolling, and it's not jumpy at all. So it's the control on a big ball that you're probably looking for when you have a lot more volume up front. Not knowing if this was the characteristics of the ball or the lanes we're bowling on and the conditions, I had to try to find something to compare it to. So I chose probably the hottest ball in the market right now, another really big ace in solid, the Black Widow 3.0. I've thrown it a few times, so I know what that one's going to do. I expect it to be sharper off the spot, but we shall see. So we just got done throwing the Widow. Started in the same spot, and I was pretty much exact on my assumptions. The Widow is a little bit sharper at the break point, but it's still picking up too early and too strong for what we're bowling on here. So it's kind of not giving me as much angle as I wanted. So that tells me that the Conspiracy is definitely going to be a little bit earlier and smoother than the Widow. And if we had more volume, it'd probably be money in the bag right now. Next, I had it compared to something that's probably been on the market a little bit longer than 3.0, the original Mindset. And I expect it to be smoother than the Conspiracy, slower to get up. So we shall see. It is a slower ball, so it's definitely going to take long to get around the corner, but that smoothness allowed me to stay right with it a little bit more. Probably about 4 to 5 board difference between the two. Comparing all three, the Black Widow's the sharpest out of the three. The Conspiracy is probably just a step below it as far as angularity. However, it does pick up earlier. And then the Mindset's just slower and more continuous out of the three, so it's definitely a good progression. Steep inside with sharpness, a little bit to the right of that with the Conspiracy for stronger volumes, and then a little bit to the right of that with the Mindset for a little bit better control overall. All right, so final rating for this new Conspiracy ball. It's got to be in the fire category. It looks good, it rolls where I needed it to. Just didn't have enough volume here in this house. I expect to test it out in other places with a little more volume, a little longer pattern possibly, maybe less friction than our center that we're at today. And I guarantee you it's probably going to look a lot better going through the pins. Overall, it's probably going to have a spot in my bag for tournaments, especially once I start to test it a little bit more on different patterns and figure out where it kind of fits overall. Depending on where I'm looking at, it's going to be a step right, like I said, right between the Black Widow 3.0 and the Mindset for me. So it's a good 1-2 combination with any of those two, depending on what I'm looking for the day. And the people that should be looking for this ball of their own, I'd recommend someone that's probably a lower rev rate, like rev challenged, I should say, speed dominant, because the ball is going to pick up and is going to roll for you, which is something that I guarantee a lot of guys that are straighter and having a hard time getting a ball to really drive through the pins. This is probably going to do it for you, no problem.
Okay, so that's what the bowlers think, but what does the Specto data say? First off, starting with Fitz, we have a great data set here to talk about the idea of 3 bowling balls being the same bowling ball. So first off, you can see Fitz was very consistent with the speed and RPM across all of the shots. And as you start to look for total hook, launch angle, and impact angle, you'll see that they're all very, very similar with all 3 of these bowling balls, which might lead you to think, okay, all 3 of these bowling balls are the same. Well, in some cases that might be true, in some cases it might not be. First, the question is, what is the environment that the player is going to be bowling on? Now, if they're bowling on a house shot where the oil pattern is what I would call very dynamic, which means that it has a large influence on ball motion because often the ratios are very high. You have a lot of oil in the middle of the lane and a lot of drive to the right of the lane. If the player is bowling on a house shot, these 3 bowling balls will probably look a lot more similar, like you're seeing here in the data. However, as the pattern gets flatter and the characteristics of these bowling balls can start to showcase themselves a little bit more, you're going to see much bigger differences between these bowling balls. And there are some subtleties in the data here that would kind of suggest what we can expect in difference to see from these bowling balls as the pattern gets flatter. So the first thing that I would notice is the mindset. You're going to notice it's really the outlier in terms of speed loss. In the heads and mids, it has a lot more speed loss, which ends up translating into more change of direction in the heads and mids as well. And even though the change of direction is quite similar between all of the bowling balls, you can still see there's a big difference in the mindset in terms of change of direction in the heads and mids. So when you consider that the mindset is really close to the same as the other balls in total hook and launch angle, as well as impact angle, but the only differences are in the speed loss and change of direction in the front part of the lane, that can quickly tell you that if the pattern was a little bit flatter, the mindset is going to be much better than the other 2 bowling balls on the fresh. And it's going to be much worse than the other 2 bowling balls as the lanes transition and you have to get your feet left. Now, Fitz was the furthest right with the mindset. From there, he was a little bit more left with the conspiracy. And the conspiracy and Widow 3.0 look a lot closer to one another in terms of speed loss and change of direction. But you can see the Widow 3.0, he was the furthest left on the lane width. It also had the most change of direction in the back part of the lane. So while the total change of direction was kind of similar, you can see a big increase in the Widow 3.0 in change of direction in the back part of the lane. So again, as the patterns get flatter, you might find the Widow 3.0 giving you a few more hits as you have to get further left, because the bowling ball's tendency to change direction on the same amount of speed loss seems to be higher than the other 2 bowling balls. So if you're only bowling on house shots mostly, and your house shot is not incredibly wet or incredibly dry, but is kind of medium, you can really choose any of these bowling balls. If you're wanting to stay straighter, the mindset might be a bit better. If you're someone who likes to loop it a little bit more, the Widow 3.0 might be better. And if you're someone kind of in between, you might take a look at the conspiracy. Up next, we have our pro shop operator, Richard Kastings. Very good player, a lot of honor scores. Spends a lot of time in the pro shop helping customers out and navigating them between all the different bowling balls. He's going to be comparing to the Quantum Evo Response and the DV8 Hellcat. So let's see what he thinks.
To shoot 10 shots with a Conspiracy HK22, remake of a new ball that everybody was super stoked about. First 10 shots so far, the ball has been really strong, picks up in the right spot for sure. I'm gonna have to throw it a lot, that's a guarantee. Now I'm really curious to see how it compares to my Hellcat and my Evo response. Definitely see a big difference. Now, the house shot that we're bowling on today is not heavy volume by any means, so the ball definitely wants to pick up a lot sooner than a Hellcat. Still plenty of mid lane and down lane pop with this ball, but essentially it's just really strong. I'm comparing it to the Quantum Evo response. I would say that the Quantum Evo response is definitely a lot cleaner with pretty much the same shape down lane, just a lot easier to get it to the spot, that's for sure. So after getting to review this ball, throw a few shots with it, I definitely believe this ball is fire. It's definitely earned a spot in my bag. I'm just thinking about numerous different styles of play. I think this is going to be really good for either people that are speed dominant or people that are definitely looking for the ball to pick up a little bit more in the mid lane, but with a smooth continuation down lane.
Up next, we have Rich, who clearly saw a much bigger difference between his 3 bowling balls than Fitz did. Whether you're looking at total hook, launch angle, or change of direction, you can see that he experienced a bigger difference between his 3 bowling balls. I believe the bigger takeaway with Rich is another sign of how big of a deal it is to have a lot of games and use and time on a bowling ball. We've mentioned this many times in past videos, but you'd probably expect the Quantum Evo here to have the most change of direction down lane because it's a shiny ASIM, when in fact it has a much less change of direction in the back part of the lane than the other 2 bowling balls, even though it is further right if you take a look at the lane graphs. So Rich, or even a common bowler, might think, okay, when the lanes get dry and I need to get left and throw it to the right and make sure the bowling ball comes back, I probably need to switch to my shiny asymmetrical bowling ball. It'd be a very understandable assumption, but as you can see from the Specto data here, the Quantum Evo likely would not perform as well as you would hope in that situation, and the Conspiracy probably would perform better because it has the ability to slow down the most, and slowing down is what creates change of direction. The overall amount of time and use on the Quantum Evo has made it more difficult for that bowling ball to slow down, and as we always say, if it doesn't slow down, it cannot change direction. Now you might be thinking, well, Virtue's in the business of selling bowling balls, so of course they're always going to say the new bowling balls perform better. Well, for one, we have the Specto data here that objectively shows how the new bowling balls typically perform much better than the older ones. But we also always say in these videos that performance does not equate to score. Yes, a bowling ball with more performance allows you to typically get further left of your opponent, and normally on the right-hand side of the lane, this is an advantage. It minimizes the amount of transition you can see and typically keeps your ball a little bit more on the oil line. But there's a lot more to it than that. Very often, especially for league bowlers, their physical game can limit their ability to get left and project the ball to the right. The ability to move your feet left and open up your angles more is normally a common sign of your higher level, higher skilled bowlers. Most bowlers are not able to do this. Many bowlers have to stay fairly straight and vertical on the lane. And in this case, that type of bowler might actually find more success sticking with their Quantum Evo or their Hellcat and not necessarily buying the new Conspiracy if the Conspiracy forced them too far left and kind of got their general physical game in an uncomfortable spot. So keep in mind that use with a bowling ball does have a huge impact on its performance, but that does not necessarily mean it has a huge impact on scores. It's always about choosing the right bowling ball for you and the conditions.
We hope you found this video useful. As always, if you like videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.